All right. Good evening, everyone. Deb, at a minimum, you get the Perfect Attendance Award. So that's something.
Linda, too.
Of course, Linda, too. Right.
Well, and I answered the first question.
Right. Okay.
She gets something, too.
Nobody else raised their hand.
And she gets to teach the class.
Perfect. All right, so welcome to session number 4 of Financially Fit February. Topic tonight is systems and support. So I hope that through these first 3 sessions you've gotten information that's been helpful to you. And it's easy to get information, right? You can talk to people. You can go online and search for things, and it's not at all hard to get information, right? In fact, it's maybe even too easy to get information and be overwhelmed with the amount of it. What I think is maybe more important at the end of the day in order to help you do whatever you're trying to accomplish are having systems, right? So the knowledge is just fine without then a system to implement it, you won't necessarily have, success in what you're trying to achieve. Hey, Phil. Hey. There you go. There you go. Sure thing. So that's the main idea here. All right. So quick recap of the first 3 sessions. In the first session, we talked about doing some self-evaluation and setting some goals. Session 2 was about building a strong foundation and some elements of a solid foundation of a plan. And then last session was on investments. I've brought this up real quickly every time. This is a form that I think it makes sense to do periodically, the self-assessment form that we've used before. And also spent some time talking about what types of things were important and what types of things are urgent. Now, tonight, as we're thinking about systems, and the answer to this doesn't have to necessarily be systems or support related, but why do you think some people, here you go, sure, why do you think some people struggle while others have financial success? What are some of the reasons for that or explanations? Maybe not having a plan. Yep, that's one thing. Lack of knowledge would be something else. Yep.
Spending foolishly.
Not being disciplined, right? So either you don't have a plan, you don't know what to do, you don't have a plan, or you don't stick to the plan, right? And people that have success, it's probably fair to say, maybe have more success in those 3 areas. But that's probably a pretty good, broad overview. Well, our first verse tonight, no matter where anybody is today, I think that it's possible to change. So if you're in a good place, that's great. If you're in a place where you want to make some changes, it's possible to change. It's not set in stone, right? So this verse, I can do all things through him who strengthens me, right? The change isn't easy, but it can be done, of course. So we also, last time I showed this, and I had forgotten in the first one, the quick story about goals and the importance of having goals. So, that's on the first page of the handout tonight, another example of goals. So here on the slide are some examples of potential goals, right? Buy a boat by a certain date, remodel the kitchen by a certain date, retire by a certain date, be able to pay a certain amount maybe towards children or grandchildren's education, leave an inheritance of a certain amount, give a certain amount by a certain time. So these would be examples of goals that would fit that SMART format, right? Specific, measurable, timely, etc. So even if you've done this before, for the purposes of our exercises tonight, I want you to try to write down 4 different goals. Just the first 4 things that come to you, okay? Don't worry about how to do them. Don't worry if they seem impossible, but just write down 4 goals that you think would really be good goals to have. And I've said this before, it works out really well that when we're here in the sanctuary, we have pencils in the pews. So you're writing something here that can be changed easily, right? Don't have to feel like it's in ink and is set in stone forever. Okay, so hopefully you have 4 goals or at least a couple written down. All right. Now, does anybody know who this is? No. This is this guy's name is Simon Sinek, and he's got one of probably the most downloaded or most watched ever TED Talks from several years ago, and it really launched him. It was a very popular, and he would be the kind of person that, for example, might be a regular guest on Oprah or something. So really launched his career. And he has the concept of this talk was whenever you're talking about goals or really anything that you're trying to do, even something like a task, for example, you want to first start by really thinking deeply about why do you want to do that, right? And then how are you going to do that, and then what are you going to do later? So to kind of break that down a little bit, you just wrote down a few goals on the first page. So on the second page, take a moment and think about why did you put down those goals? And you don't have to worry so much about how or what right this moment, right? But why are those goals? And the whole concept is that that people are the most successful when they have a very, very clear idea of why, and especially if they can communicate that to someone else, right? That makes it anything you're trying to do, if you can really say why, makes it a lot more clear in your mind. It gives you a lot more motivation. Without that, it's maybe a little bit more of a dream instead of a goal, right? So as we're kind of thinking through that a little more, and thinking about, what's your why for any of these goals, and you can do the same type of exercise with anything. It doesn't have to be financially related, but anything in your life you go through the same exercise with. Well, one of the things that I would hope that is part of your financial plan as you're thinking through things is, why are you doing this? Is hopefully to serve the Lord. Are there things? Is the reason why you want to do something so you can help others grow? Or so you can pass on a legacy so future generations can serve, right? And if that's really part of your why, then that's going to make that goal a lot more powerful and a lot more real, because of course there are going to be bumps along the way to any kind of long-term goal. It's easy to give up or to get distracted when things aren't going smoothly or easily. But if you've got a strong why for the goal, you have a much better chance of working through those things, right? And then again, sharing that why with someone else, right? So in the study that from last week that we talked about, there was a huge increase in performance of the Harvard MBA grads when they had specific goals and they wrote them down, right? So we've done that a couple occasions here, and then to think about, why is that a goal? I think makes it even much more powerful and concrete in your mind. All right, now, switching gears just a little bit. So we got a picture here of 3 friends, right? Now I was going to ask Steve tonight because I thought he would have no problem giving me an honest answer. If I had a New Year's resolution to go jogging every day, or let's say 4 or 5 days a week or something like that, there's a good chance by this point, knowing myself, that I may not have followed through with that. But if I had 2 friends that I was going to go jogging with every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday or something like that, would my odds be better of sticking with the routine? Absolutely, right? So, having goals, sharing them with other people is really helpful for a number of reasons as part of a system. Now, who's this? Vince Lombardi, right? Famous coach of the Packers, right? So, also, as you're trying to work towards something, is it helpful to have a coach? Right? I would think so, right? I mean, Bart Starr, very talented, right? What if he had success without coaches? Probably not. What if the coaches only coached them if they won the last game? They'd show up to practice and coach. Or what if they only showed up if they lost the last game? How would that work out? Having a consistent routine of interaction with a coach on some kind of systematic basis and friends be very helpful in achieving what you're trying to do. Now, I also always thought it was interesting, this sort of concept. So what's this a picture of? A stage coach. Stage coach. What does a coach like this do? Takes you where you want to go, right? That's what a coach does. It helps take you where you want to go, right? So whether it's something direct, whether it's like we think about a football coach, or whether we think it's about a stage coach, we're trying to get somewhere, and the coach is there to help you do that. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about some hows and some whys. So with any of these goals, hows and whats, we maybe not this moment, but maybe you've got a clear picture of what a goal is. Maybe you've got an idea about why it's important. If you don't already, that's okay. You can spend some time on it. All right, and then how are you going to get there, right? I said earlier, these goals didn't have to seem realistic, right? But if we think about, okay, well, how do we have to do something? Well, the first thing that may or may not apply to you, I don't know what your situations are, but prioritize. So I think it was in the second session we talked about a program of baby steps, right? You can only work on one thing at a time typically, and you have to prioritize. You can't probably change 10 things at once. So what is the first specific step? Well, it might be to discuss those baby steps with a coach or a friend. Another piece might be to have a spending plan, to separate things into, separate different things you spend on to needs and wants and fixed and variable types of expenses. And discuss that with a coach or a friend, right? Get some feedback. You'll have more accountability. You'll get a second opinion, right? Maybe your goal is too aggressive. Maybe it's not aggressive enough, right? Talk to somebody about it. Then other potential steps might be have an emergency savings plan or a plan to create an emergency savings account. have a plan to be investing money for long-term goals, all right? The first step there, and it might not be one step, it might be a couple steps, but it might be to automate it, right? So, here's what I mean by that. So you take somebody who has a job. In return for showing up to their job every day and doing well, they receive what? Maybe a bonus, but at a minimum, a paycheck, right? We get a paycheck. Okay. We get a paycheck. And then, let's say that today in 2019, right, maybe it gets direct deposited, into a bank account, and then it comes out of the bank and it gets spent on stuff, right? That's pretty simple, pretty standard type of flow right there, right? Sometimes maybe we spend too much compared to what we've got in the bank or what's coming in there in the paycheck. So we could automate things, right? Could we have a second bank account, and for everything that's fixed, I mentioned earlier, you have wants and you have needs, right? So what would be an example of an expense that would be a need? Your mortgage. Does your mortgage change every month, or is it the same every single month? Same every single month. Yeah, for like 30 years, right? Okay. What else would be a need? Utility bills, right? Now your electric bill, for example, might vary month to month, but will they average that out for you if you ask them to? Yeah, they will, right? And so you know it's going to be, exactly $112.47 every month or whatever it is, right? So not for everything, but for a lot of things, we could figure out fixed things, right? We could add up all of our fixed things, right? And I don't know if that adds up to, let's say $3,000 a month. Maybe that's too big. Maybe it's $2,000 a month. Whatever it is, right? Could we have? Let's just say it's $3,000 for this example. Could we have? You get 2 paychecks a month. Could you have $1,500 from each paycheck going into one bank account, and then have all those things be paid automatically? And could you have the rest going into another bank account, where then you have the ability to spend it on discretionary things, right? Is there any reason why that doesn't work? No, it just takes a little time to set it up. But once it works, then it's easy. It's automated. It's a system. You don't have to think about it anymore, right? Less things can go wrong, right? So same thing with investments, right? Out of your paycheck, maybe you have money that goes into a 401k already. You could have other investment accounts, like for example a Roth IRA that also come out of there, right? They can set up a lot pretty easily for checks to go. Or if they can't do that from your paycheck, then it can just come from this fixed account over here, right? So crunching some numbers, figuring some things out, and then setting this up and having it on autopilot is going to make it a lot easier to stick to. So next thing we need to do is act logically with investments. Now I spent a moment on this last time also. So let's talk about investments for a second. All right, so one of the golden rules with investments is we want to buy when and we want to sell when.
Buy low, sell high.
We want to buy low, sell high, obviously. Right? Now, as we're sitting here this evening, it's very rational, right? But when things are happening, right, people tend to get emotional, okay? So let's say that you're plugging along and the stock market drops, right? Now, did you have any control over that? No, right? What's the emotional reaction that I hope you don't have when that happens? Sell, exactly. But it's very easy to do that. Oh my gosh, this is going down. I better get out. I better stick this under the mattress where it's safe, right? Worst thing you can do. If you've got money under the mattress, that's the time to put it in, because we want to buy low and we want to sell high. So, discussing these things with a coach, with a friend, just anybody that can help you avoid emotional reactions that you may regret and help you make better logical ones is a good system to have in place. All right. Other house, having the right amount of insurance in place, having guaranteed retirement income, having an extended care plan. Discussing those things, I say, with coach, and coach and family, right? So we'll spend a second on this extended care plan for a second, right? Okay, so the odds are that most people, something like 70%, at some point in life, and probably later in life, are going to need some help, right? They're going to need some help with something. Now, if you needed some help with something, right? You don't have to say it out loud, but just think, who would you call for that? Who is going to help you out? Okay?